ABC 6 News 11 at 11 starts right now.
Tonight at 11 at 11, Governor McKee calling out Ashley Kalis over vulgar text messages he sent years ago. Will it score him any votes? Tonight we're hearing from our political analyst.
Plus, after almost half a century, authorities identified a person of interest in the Lady of the Dunes murder case on the Cape.
And later, moms are going to love this one. Why a new survey says you're better off eating out on Thanksgiving this year. We'll get to those stories shortly, but first tonight at 11 at 11, we're tracking breaking news out of New Bedford. Intense flames tearing through a home on Hemlock Street, caving in the roof. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm John DeLuca.
And I'm Tiffany Murphy. Mutual aid from multiple departments, even Providence, on scene at this fire right now. ABC 6 reporter Daniel Coates joins us live in New Bedford with the latest. Daniel?
Officially declared this fire as...
And Tiffany, those crews that you were talking about are going on to hour 4 of being here on Hemlock Street in New Bedford, tending to that house that they say had heavy smoke and heavy fire coming from the second floor. New Bedford police, or New Bedford fire, I should say, received a call around 7 o'clock. Again, heavy smoke and heavy fire coming from the second floor. They say the entire home itself is actually unoccupied. No injuries were reported by the department or any civilians, but the department did have a long fight against the fire as the side of the house and stairs were full of debris, which is why their deputy chief said this was a longer battle than usual.
At that point, fire broke through the roof. Command pulled the crews out of the building and transitioned to an exterior attack. Once the roof came in, we couldn't send guys back in there while the fire was still going. And right now, there are pockets of fire underneath all the roof debris, the shingles, the sheathing. So they're trying to pull back some of that so they can get to these hot spots without going inside and actually hitting the fire from inside.
I spoke with neighbors in the area who told me the only occupant of the home before the fire recently passed away just last week. They say the home was in the family for decades. Now, as I said, going on hour 4 of crews here on Hemlock Street in New Bedford. They're still tending to some hot spots, so stick with ABC 6 on air and online for continued coverage throughout the night. Live in New Bedford, I'm Daniel Coates, ABC 6 News.
Daniel, thank you. New tonight on 11 at 11, a kidnapping this evening at an MBTA station in South Boston. According to authorities, a 1-month-old boy was forcibly taken from his mother in South Boston by a man driving an older model red Chevy Suburban. That vehicle took off 95 South and was eventually stopped in Medford. Police arrested the male driver, who they now say is a relative of that baby boy. The baby was checked out and is physically okay. All right, let's get a check of the forecast now. Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Jeff Tenoy joining us live in the Weather Center. What a drop in temperatures.
We have it in the forecast coming up in just a few moments. Tiffany.
Thank you, Jeff. Now to an ABC 6 News update. A woman is dead tonight after being hit by a train in Providence. That crash happened behind the medical examiner's office on Orm Street just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. That investigation backed up the rail for hours because of police activity. The Providence commuter rail and Amtrak service were both delayed. Massachusetts State Police naming a person of interest in the Lady of the Dunes cold case. The murder happened almost 50 years ago, but that victim was not identified until earlier this week. Ruth Marie Terry's body was discovered at the Dunes in Provincetown. Investigators are looking for more information on Guy Rockwell Moldavan, who they believe married Terry a few months before her body was discovered. Moldavan has since passed away. Anyone with any information on either Moldavan or Terry is asked to call 1-800-CAPTURE.
Governor McKee naming a director for the state's Drug Prevention and Intervention Task Force. Catherine Schultz has been appointed to that position. She has experience as a recovery specialist and statewide Narcan trainer. Now, as the director, she'll be in charge of using the state's opioid settlement money to support treatment and addiction recovery programs.
To continue to align all of our efforts and to continue to use my lived experience to try to, really align everything that we're doing and raise the voice. The secretary actually said it perfectly: voice, choice, and engagement.
Rhode Island and several other states have won recent settlements against opioid manufacturers such as Purdue Pharma. And more recently, pharmacy chains CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens have agreed to pay $13 billion in settlements on opioid cases. Less than a week now before the election, and Ashley Kalis and Governor McKee are ratcheting up their verbal jabs.
Most recently, McKee's campaign condemning vulgar text messages, as explained in a recent Boston Globe report. Here's ABC 6 News reporter Daniel Coates.
What kind of example is this setting for our children?
With the exception of Governor McKee himself,
dozens of Democrats gathered on the steps of the State House, shocked and saddened by 2018 text messages from Ashley Kalus that they call vulgar and offensive. The Boston Globe reported Tuesday that these texts came from a dispute between Kalus and a Chicago-based contractor.
It was a concern because seeing that type of language being used and the meaning that was being used makes me worry a lot. Because that's the type of language that we want people to be using here in the state of Rhode Island for the leader of the state of Rhode Island.
Kalis' team quickly responding to what they called a petty news conference, citing multiple instances where they say the governor put politics over people, asking, do we really want a governor who is afraid of a few bad words? Associate Professor of Political Science Adam Myers says this tit for tat is expected close to Election Day.
The campaigns know is that negative news, even though voters say they don't like it and they say that they wish politicians wouldn't focus so much on the negative, the fact of the matter is negative advertisements work.
Regardless who's victorious, Myers believes both Kalus and McKee would have to work on their approval rating, as both candidates have some hiccups on their resume.
The McKee campaign, knew that he had some negatives going into this race. And so one of the best ways to neutralize those negatives, quite frankly, is to ensure that his opponent has negatives associated with her as well.
In Providence, I'm Daniel Coates, ABC 6 News.
The vice president is back in D.C. tonight, but just a few hours ago, she was in Boston. The VP making remarks on the Inflation Reduction Act, touting some of the progress she says the Biden administration has made. Harris also focusing on the measures in the Inflation Reduction Act to help families afford energy-efficient upgrades to their homes.
And even though we know it can save you thousands of dollars in the long run, the upfront cost is often too high for so many families to be able to afford. And that is why we are investing $300 million right here in Massachusetts and $13 billion nationwide to help families pay to upgrade their homes.
After the speech, the vice president stumped for Maura Healey's campaign for governor. Not that Healey really needs it, though. Recent polling data has her nearly 30% points ahead of her Republican opponent, Jeff Deal.
Staying in Massachusetts, voters will be deciding on 4 ballot questions next week. Last night, we told you about question 1. That's the so-called millionaire's tax. Question 2 focuses on dental insurance. It requires insurance companies to spend over 80% of their customers' premiums on dentist appointments and procedures and not on administrative expenses. Now, if question 2 were to pass, insurance providers will have to give refunds to their customers if they don't hit that cap.
And then in Rhode Island, there are 3 questions for voters to decide here, with issues ranging from improving schools to helping the environment. ABC 6 News anchor Olivia DeRocha takes a look.
On November 8th, Rhode Island voters will vote on 3 different measures, ranging from revamping public education buildings to funding various environmental and recreational research projects. A yes vote on any of these supports the proposed bond, and a no vote rejects it. The first question on the ballot proposes borrowing $100 million to fund 2 new facilities at University of Rhode Island's Narragansett Bay campus. It's one of the top 5 oceanography institutions in the country. Advocates for the project say the current marine campus is over 60 years old and is unable to compete with neighboring states to stay a leader in things like wind farming. In 2018, voters approved $45 million for the first phase of this project. Question 2 proposes $250 million in bonds to fund renovations and construction at state public school buildings. The state has struggled with deficiencies in the more than 300 public schools for years, brought to light in 2017 when a years-long assessment by Jacobs Engineering predicted it would take over $2 billion to bring all the schools in the state to ideal condition. The last measure, question 3, splits $50 million in bonds between various environmental and recreational projects. For example, $12 million would go towards the Roger Williams Park and Zoo and $5 million towards a small business energy loan program. If these 3 questions pass, it's predicted another $240 million will be tacked on for interest. Olivia DeRocha, ABC 6 News.
Still to come tonight at 11, downtown Providence getting another spot for foodies. The well-known Providence businessman making the expansion of Hope in Maine happen.
Plus, skip the food prep this Thanksgiving, why it might be cheaper to eat out on Turkey Day.
And later, the Celtics and Cavs go to overtime tonight in Cleveland. Nicholas Nicky will break it down for us shortly, including the incredible place by Jason Tatum to end that game. You're watching ABC 6, Southern New England's trusted news source.